Now let's hop over to the MPC itself and let's talk about what you actually have on the connections here, or what you have on the surface level for your hardware. So of course, the MPC is legendary for the pads that you see here. So the MPC has 16 touch sensitive and velocity sensitive pads for your samples to load on, so you can actually play. If you're a finger drummer, these pads feel absolutely great for actually doing anything that you want to do performance wise. Above the pads, you have some control. So remember I said you have 16 pads, but you actually have 8 banks of 16 pads. So like right now I'm in bank A, and you can see that the pads are also lit up in colors. I have a preloaded drum program, and the preloads have red for kick drums and yellow for snares, and hi-hats are usually in orange, and then other colors represents other things like chord progression, synths, and that type of thing. But if I go to bank B, you'll notice it's not lit up because in this case there are no sounds here. You can also have sounds without the lights on because you can actually customize the lights to do what you want. But bank A, bank B, bank C, bank D. Now, if you see any button that has a gray letter or a gray word underneath it, that means that that button has a secondary function. You can access that secondary function with the shift key by holding shift and hitting that. Now you see the button lights up in yellow, and now I'm no longer in bank A, but I'm in bank E. Same thing here, bank F, or if it has a secondary function, you can just double touch that button to get to the secondary function. So I'm in bank G, bank H. Go back to bank A. Beneath that, we have some additional features that are performance based. You have your note repeat function, which is also legendary to the MPC. If I hold this down and play a pad, that pad will be repeated at a time division that's based here at the bottom of the screen and based on the tempo. If you notice beneath it, it also says latch. So if I double touch it or hold shift and hit it, then I'm latched into that note repeat function. And I'll be using that as I create something here a little bit later on. Next, you have full level. And full level just means when you hit the pad, the velocity sensitivity is going off. So now the pads always play at a full velocity of 127. The secondary function is half velocity. And so if you do that, then you're always playing at half of 127. All right, let me get out of that. Next, you have 16 level. So 16 level works like this. If I activate 16 level, then I can take any sample or any pad, and then I can map that one sample across all the pads in different ways. For instance, right now it's set to tune. Excuse, it's kind of hard to see what's on the display in some of the screens based on my lighting in the room. But when it's on tune, this kick drum is now tuned all the way across all 16 pads. Now I can set that to velocity, and now it's velocity mapped all the way across those 16 pads. And then I have filter, layer, attack, and decay. So I can do that for any pad. I'm gonna close that out, turn that off. Next, I have the erase button here that'll allow me to take things out of a recording that I made. I'll use that later on in the course. And I want to move down here under the LCD. We'll talk a lot about the touch screen there, but let's talk about what's going on under here. This is basically your transport section. This is where you basically tell the MPC to stop, start, record, play. But right above it, you also have access to a couple of other things. Of course, we talked about the shift button already, but here you have your menu button. If I hit the menu button, this toggles me into my touch screen that allows me to get into all of the different modes of the MPC Live. So for the most part, I'm going to be working in main mode, but I have the ability to go into grid view, track view, step sequencer. This is how I can access my sampler. I can get to my sample editor. I can get to my mixer here for pads or for the channel strips. We can get into song mode. I can color my pads and everything from the menu. The secondary function of the menu, which I'll use quite a bit today, is the browser. So if I double touch that, it takes me into the browser. This allows me to access any connected hard drive, thumb drive, or the internal memory right on the MPC. Main just takes me to my main screen. If I double touch main, I'm in my track view, so I can see the tracks for everything there. Undo does exactly what you think it does. It undoes your last step. The secondary function is redo. So you have undo and redo. Copy will allow me to copy. And then the secondary function is delete there. So if I wanted to copy a pad to another place, I would select the pad and then select where I want it to go, and then copy that and say do it, and have that pad copied over to a different location. The secondary function of that is delete. It'll allow you to delete samples off of pads. All right. Tap tempo. As we create, we're going to actually start to find a tempo for the sequence that I want to create. One way you can do it is just by simply hitting tap. Your tempo is located here on the screen. As I tap, it will figure out the tempo that I'm tapping and average that and create the tempo there. Here you have your record button, your overdub button. Of course, record starts the recording process. If I hit that, it'll blink play. When I hit play start, it'll give me a 1-bar count in, and then it'll start to record. Once it gets to the end of how many ever measures you have your sequence set up to, it'll automatically jump into overdub. Overdub will allow me to add additional samples or additional performances to the actual recording without erasing it. If I'm go back to and record over a track, it will erase everything that's on that track while I'm recording. Stop does what you think it does. It stops the sequence, but also double tapping stop will stop a long sample from playing. Play starts play from wherever you are in your sequence, and play start starts from the actual beginning of the sequence, like so. All right. The plus and the minus button here allow you to navigate from whatever is selected. So if I select the tempo and then I change this, it will speed the tempo up and slow the tempo down. With minus, if I select the sequence, it will change the sequences up and down. Again, I apologize. I can see that the sequence is completely white there, so it's hard to see that it's changing the sequence. And then over on the far left-hand side of the MPC, you have your cue links. Now, your cue links are great tools. They allow you to manipulate different parameters based on the screen that you're on by default. They are dynamic based on where you are. So say, for instance, if I go to sample edit, let me select a sample here. Sample edit, these can actually be where I trim my sample depending on which bank I'm in. So you see 4 Q-Link knobs, but there are 4 banks. So you actually have the availability of 16 Q-Link knobs, but you have to bank over to change that. We'll spend some time with the Q-Link knobs later on as I start to actually do some creating. Finally, here you have your data dial, and your data dial is a big controller that has many different functions, and it all depends on what is selected or what has the red selection around it, or on my screen it looks like white. And if whatever's selected, I turn that knob, the data dial changes that particular parameter. The data dial also has a function where you can push it down to basically enter, or it's like touching something on the screen. Now, the touch screen is very responsive, as you'll see when we start to edit some samples. So I can do most of my editing and most of my manipulation right from the touch screen. Like if I wanted to put a tempo in, I just double touch there and then type the tempo in and say do it, and that will have the tempo. So we'll look at a bunch of different ways. There's no right or wrong way to how you work your MPC Live. I just want to kind of show you some of the various ways to actually start creating with the MPC Live. Of course, I won't be able to cover everything the MPC Live can do in this short time, but I'll try to answer as many questions as I can once I get to the end.